All right, today we're tackling a topic that hits close to home for so many people in Arizona: homeowners associations. HOAs. We're going to dive into the most common ways they bend or break the rules. And, most importantly, show you how you can actually stand up for your rights when they go too far. So let me ask you this. Have you ever gotten one of those letters from your HOA that just felt off? A fine that came out of nowhere or a new rule that just seems completely ridiculous? Trust me, you are not alone. That friction between homeowners and their associations is a super common story, but it almost always boils down to one simple question. Is what the HOA is doing actually legal? So, here's our game plan. First, we'll quickly look at the power dynamic at play. Then, the main event. We're counting down the top 10 most common HOA violations right here in Arizona. After that, we'll get into your legal toolkit, the actual laws that protect you. And finally, we'll walk you through step-by-step how to take action. Look, in theory, HOAs are a good thing. They're set up to keep the neighborhood looking good and protect everyone's property values. But, as we know, that authority can sometimes get a little out of hand, leading to some really arbitrary or unfair enforcement. The key thing to remember is that their power isn't absolute. It's supposed to be controlled by a specific set of rules, rights, and responsibilities, all laid out in state law and their own governing documents. Okay, so where do HOAs mess up the most often? This is what you need to know. We are about to count down the top 10 most common legal violations we see right here in Arizona. Seriously, knowing these is the absolute first step to protecting yourself as a homeowner. Let's kick things off with a rules and process. Coming in at number 1, improper or arbitrary rule enforcement. This one is huge. It means your HOA can't fine you for having, say, a basketball hoop while ignoring the fact that 5 of your neighbors have the exact same one. The rules have to be applied to everyone, period. Number 2, fines without due process. They can't just bill you for a violation. The law in Arizona is clear. You have to get written notice and you have to be given a chance for a hearing. And at number 3, discriminatory or unenforceable rules. An HOA can't just make up a rule that overrides state or federal law, like the Fair Housing Act. It's just not enforceable. Moving on to decisions and records. At number 4, we've got improper architectural decisions. So, let's say you submit plans to paint your house a new color. The HOA can't just say no because they don't like it. Their denial has to be based on actual standards written in the community documents, not just one board member's personal taste. Number 5 is a big one: refusing access to records. As a homeowner, you have a legal right to see most of the HOA's records. We're talking financial statements, meeting minutes, all of it. They can't just tell you no. And at number 6, improper fees. Your HOA can't just invent new fees out of thin air. Any charge they hit you with has to be explicitly authorized in the governing documents that you signed when you bought your house. Next up, let's talk about maintenance and money. Hitting the list at number 7 is failure to maintain common areas. You pay your dues for a reason, right? Well, the HOA has a legal duty to keep up the community property. That means the pool, the park, the landscaping. If they let it all fall apart, they are not holding up their end of the deal. And at number 8, improper assessment and collection practices. When it comes to collecting dues or hitting you with late fees, the HOA has to follow the playbook. They have to stick to the procedures in their own rules and in state law. They can't just go rogue with aggressive tactics. And rounding out our list, let's look at overreach and procedure. At number 9 is overreach. This is when the HOA tries to regulate things that are way too broad or personal. The rules they make have to be reasonable and they have to be adopted the right way. And finally, number 10, failure to follow proper amendment procedures. The board can't just dream up a new rule in the backroom meeting. If they want to change the community's rules or bylaws, that usually requires giving proper notice to every homeowner and, often, getting a vote. If they skip those steps, that new rule, it's probably invalid. Okay, I know that was a lot of potential problems, but now let's flip it and focus on the solution. Because here's the most important thing to remember. You are not powerless in this situation. Your rights as a homeowner are protected by a rock-solid foundation, the Arizona Revised Statutes. The law is on your side. And this is where it gets really powerful. It's not just about what feels unfair. It's about what is legally wrong. Take a look. If your HOA won't let you see the financial records, you can point them directly to Arizona Revised Statute 33-1805. If they try to fine you without giving you a chance for a hearing, you can cite Section 33-1803. For so many of these common violations, there is a specific law you can use to back up your claim. And the legal protections don't even stop there. Other important laws are in play. Title 32, for instance, sets up the official HOA dispute process, We're going to talk more about that in a second. And since most HOAs are run as nonprofit corporations, Title 10 has a whole set of rules about how their boards have to operate. Okay, so you've spotted a violation, you know the law has your back, so what now? This is your practical guide, your playbook for how to build a real case and actually fight back effectively. Building a really strong case against your HOA comes down to these 3 key steps. First, don't just say they're wrong. Tell them why they're wrong by citing the specific Arizona law they're violating. Second, pull out their own rulebook, the CC&Rs or bylaws, and show them where they're breaking their own rules. And third, you need evidence. Provide clear proof like photos, emails, or just a simple timeline of events that shows they didn't follow the right process. So where do you actually take this case? Well, you don't always have to jump straight to an expensive lawsuit. Arizona has an official channel called the HOA dispute process. It's basically an administrative hearing run by the Department of Real Estate, where you can file a formal petition and have your case heard by a neutral judge. It's a fantastic first step. So think of your challenge like a 3-legged stool. The first leg is state law. The second is the HOA's own internal rules. And the third is your clear, documented evidence. When you bring all 3 of those together, you're no longer just a homeowner with a complaint. You're building a powerful, persuasive case that the HOA, and a judge if it comes to that, will have to take very seriously. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. We know the laws are there, and we know there are processes to follow, but when that power dynamic feels so lopsided, who is ultimately responsible for making sure HOAs are serving their communities fairly and legally? Is it up to the homeowners to fight every battle? Should the state step in more? Or is it up to the associations themselves? It's a question that really gets to the heart of what it means to live in a planned community.